So it's a delight to welcome to the New Hampshire Journal podcast, Anthony DiLorenzo. You know him as one of the major business figures on the Seacoast area. Now he's wailing away in the fight for the Republican nomination in the 1st Congressional District. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So how's it going out on the campaign trail? What are you hearing about? What are people asking you about?
It's going great. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of driving around, meeting different people. I find that the different areas of the state have different issues, but a lot of it's centered around affordability. Housing prices, wages, the price of groceries.
Sure.
Kitchen table issues are, I would say, the biggest reoccurring issue.
So obviously we're in the middle of a couple of things in the news cycle. So let me ask you about Iran, President Trump, and what people are saying to you. What are Republican primary voters saying about U.S. versus Iran?
I mean, most people recognize the threat, of the regime, a radical regime having a nuclear weapon is probably not a good idea for our future, our children's future. I think most people want to see us get in and out of there as quick as possible. Nobody's happy about the price of gas. And I anticipate the president getting out of there fairly quickly.
So if the president had come to you before the February 28th and said, look what's going on, look at what Iran has been doing in the past 50 years, look at how weak they are right now, what do you think? You're a businessman who has to put all the chips on the table when it comes to your finances. When you start a new project, would you have advised him to do this, or would you have said no, the downsides are just too high?
I would have, with guardrails on, so I do not want to see boots on the ground.
Right.
The president's responsibility is to the American people. So a regime change in Iran is not appropriate for us. The issue is the threat. And so as long as he's going in there, getting rid of this threat and getting out of there, I'm supportive of it. It has to be done quickly, and it looks like it will be. And I agree with him about the Strait of Hormuz, that other people need that strait to be clear as well. And it's not our job to ensure that strait has safe passage.
He is, in my opinion, just one of the most amazing people in both good and bad way. You know what I mean? Like it's like the world's best and worst student. All his grades are either A's or F's. There's never any C's or B's. Like, I love the fact that he's finally addressing the Iranian threat. It's been an open sewer in the world, killing people from Australia to Argentina. We have to spend so much money on defense because they're causing so much trouble with their neighbors. At the same time, the stumbling around, I'm watching the speech. I'm like, I think I know what he wants to do, whatever. So what's the question that you want to see? Like, if you're in Congress and the president came and said, I need you guys on board with this, what's the question that you'd like to hear the answer to?
I mean, before you set out on anything, you got to remember, I come from the business world, private sector. Right. So we're much more pragmatic about how we do things. And you have to define your mission, and then you have to be constantly evaluating where you are. Right. So why did you do this? Are you accomplishing it? What's not going to plan? How are you going to pivot? So that's the type of approach I would have with this. And I believe it's going to be difficult to do. We're not going to be able, in my opinion, to overthrow this regime just through air power, but that's okay with me, as long as we get rid of this threat. And so to me, the question is, why are you going there? And I believe the answer is because of the imminent threat of them getting a nuclear bomb. Their ballistic missile program is unacceptable, and I believe he's right. I mean, one of the things I like about him, and I give him a lot of credit for, is he always tries diplomacy, and a lot of instances, like he did it with Maduro too.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I think he's like, "Why are you wasting your time?" That's what I'm thinking to myself. Why are you wasting your time? But he's right. He always tries diplomacy.
Right.
But he's redefined our foreign policy. We've gone to a foreign policy where we're drawing lines in the sand and then not doing anything now our foreign policy is very clear. We will sit down and talk with you, and when that's not working, we will use force if necessary to accomplish our goals and protect the people of the United States.
One more foreign policy thing, and then when I come back to affordability and life here in New Hampshire, and that is, do
Yeah.
you agree with his premise that our allies, particularly in Europe, have not done their fair share, to use the Bernie Sanders phrase, that too much of the burden on the West? For example, the assumption was when Russia invaded Ukraine, America would respond. But now that America is trying to solve the problem that hurts the whole world, instead of the Europeans going, "Great idea, we want to help you, we want to, back up Iran too," they're like, "Hey, not our problem." Do you agree with Trump's description of that
I
relationship?
agree with the premise of what you said. I wouldn't necessarily apply it to this particular instance, although I do
Right.
think it has bearing here. But in general, I do not think, I think we've allowed, our behavior has allowed the NATO members to
Right.
behave in a manner that has been unacceptable.
Mm.
And he's forced their hand. And you got to remember that NATO protects them probably more than it protects us.
Of
And
course.
we've footed the bill for a long time for that. Now, I do not think we should dissolve the relationship,
Sure.
but we should ensure it's equitable.
Mhm. So, one of the challenges for Europe is that they've been able to use our military for defense. And so, in the old LBJ guns and butters, formulation of where you spend your money, they've been able to spend it on butter, social services, social welfare, et cetera, while we've been spending on guns. Well, now that's changing. It'll
Exactly.
never go back to the way it was before. Trump, like you said, has changed the direction. Europe is going to have to, and they're saying we have to stood up, buy more weapons, but they're like, uh-oh, we spend all our money on butter, and our citizens are used to these services, which brings us
Exactly.
back to the US. I've been surprised by the number of political events I've been to already this cycle where people in the crowd are raising the issue of Social Security. They've seen the projections, whether it's 2036 or 2034, whatever, whether it's Medicare first, Social Security after, but clearly there is a crisis coming. First big question is, do you think Congress can even address it, or is it basically a suicide pact? Like as soon as someone says let's fix Social Security, the other team just says, "See, they want to take it away, Grandma. You're doomed." So
Exactly.
you're a
It,
negotiator. You have to negotiate in business. Is there a? Do you think there's a political path forward, or are we just going to have to slam into the crisis and then clean up afterwards?
Unfortunately, that's been our track record. Congress does not act until there's a crisis. I was reading an article recently, within the last month, and the premise of the article was, if you want to know about the Social Security crisis, read the New York Times article from 1990. In other words, we've known about this problem
Exactly.
for a long time.
Hmm.
We refuse to act on it, largely because it's political suicide. If you come
Right.
out with a real strategy about addressing
Hmm.
Social Security, and let's face it, this is strictly a math problem. This is not sophisticated. The insurance companies do it all the time with actuaries.
Yep.
But if you start talking intelligently about it,
Hmm.
that's exactly what happens, is what you described, is they start attacking you. He wants to take away your Social Security. When in fact, the president just passed, well, legislature just passed
Right.
a bill eliminating taxes on Social Security, and
Right.
all four of our federal delegates voted against that.
That's
That,
true.
to me, that is bizarre. These are New Hampshire seniors struggling, and I travel the state all the time. I talk to people. A lot of people are struggling, and our delegation won't
Mhm.
give them tax relief. It's crazy.
They also voted in the One Big Beautiful Bill against it's called no tax on tips. It's actually no tax on the first
Mhm.
25,000
Right.
in tips, which I think I remember that. Which once again, if you're in that income level where you're relying on tips for your income, $25,000 is a significant percentage of your income. Do you
That,
think that voters are aware of the votes that Representative Chris Pappas and Maggie Goodlander have been casting, or is it just
I don't.
lost?
I don't. I talk to people that feel that they're knowledgeable about politics, and when
Right.
I get into the weeds on issues, they're really
Sure.
shocked about a lot of things. And one of the major issues we're facing is the sensationalism by the media. So
Mhm.
if you just look at the facts, when President Trump left office first time, inflation was at 1.4%. There was no talk about an affordability issue.
Right.
Zero. Biden comes in, record inflation, record issue with people now being able to make ends meet, and now it's dumped on Trump's lap. He's been in there for what, 15 months? And it's his problem, and he's gotten inflation down to in the twos now. He's got wages actually outpacing inflation, which is crucial. You have to have wages outpacing inflation. But
Mhm.
the bottom line is this problem was caused by the Biden administration. Trump is, in my opinion, is doing a good job fixing it, but it's
Right.
not enough. We need interest rate relief, and I'm very excited about having Powell, who I think is a good man, but I think he was wrong
Right.
in not lowering interest rates. So I'm excited to see him being replaced with somebody maybe more proactive.
Okay, so studied English literature in college, so I'm very uncomfortable doing math. You're a businessman, but my understanding of inflation in the economy is loosening the money supply will add to inflation because each individual dollar will be worth less. So am I wrong about that? That if you cut interest rates, you're going to be goosing inflation?
It can have an inflationary impact. The worst thing for inflation is printing money. I saw an
Mhm.
example that really made it clear. Basically said if there's 10 apples in the economy and $10 in the economy, each apple's a dollar.
Right.
If you put $20 in the economy, each apple is now $2. That is what too much money chasing too few goods does. That is exactly what happened during the Biden administration was poor monetary policy that caused inflation. So what interest rate reduction will do, it will spur the economy. So there is a possibility of inflation, but there's a larger possibility of wage increasing because as the
Mhm.
economy heats up, more jobs are created, there's more
Mhm.
competition for labor, and
Right.
employers are forced to pay more. And that's
Listen,
what we need to see.
you've mentioned President Trump several times, which is, I'll be honest with you, kind of a refreshing. It's interesting to me the number of Republicans I've talked to who don't want to talk about. I was at an event recently with a major Republican candidate, and they didn't get to Trump until almost an hour into the event. And I'm going, you do know that for primary voters, that's one of the top issues is where you're on Trump. So I have two questions for you about your debate with whoever the Democratic nominee is. When they turn to you and say, New Hampshire hates Trump, his poll numbers are in the tank, 55, 60% disapproval. You're just going down to DC to do Trump's bidding. That's not what we need. What is Anthony DiLorenzo's answer to that going to be? Because that is going to happen at some point in the
It
debate.
is, and I would go right to the issues because I can understand why some people are upset by the president's behavior. I get it, but let's talk about the issues. Which one do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about secure borders? Do you want to talk about domestic energy production? Do you want to talk about supporting law enforcement, cutting
Right,
taxes? Which one would you like to debate? The,
right,
the problem is their judgment is getting clouded by their dislike of the president, and they're not talking about issues. What is the Democrat platform?
right.
Besides hating the president, what is their platform? Let's talk about issues. I talk to many people on the trail, and they are fed up with this polarization in Washington. I hear it more frequent. You'd be surprised about how many Republicans actually say to me, "We want somebody that's willing to work across the aisle to accomplish things for the people of New Hampshire and the people
Right,
of our country." And that's what we do in the in the private sector. We don't start a conversation by saying,
right.
"What party are you in?" We define what the problem is and we come up with solutions. And that's what I want to do. And if it's in agreement with the president's policies, that's what I'll
Mhm.
do. And if it contrasts the president's policies, my job is to represent the constituents of New Hampshire. And that's what I'll do.
So when I moderate a debate, I give everybody a chance. So after you get that question, I'm going to turn to you and say, Mr. DiLorenzo, what one question, what one issue, what was one topic would you like Stephanie Shaheen to address as the Democratic nominee? What would be your
I,
your
w- I
top
would
question?
say, tell me about your resume, because I don't believe
Wow.
if her last name was not Shaheen, you would be asking this question. I think you'd be talking about Maura Sullivan. So tell me about your resume, because I'm happy to talk about mine. I've been working for 53 years. I got my first job when I was 8 years old, delivering the newspaper. I've washed dishes. I've worked hard my whole life. I've created 1,000 jobs. I have a lot of different companies throughout the country
Sure.
now. I've been able to live and pursue the American dream, which is what my family encouraged me to do at a very young age. So I would like you to tell me what you've done.
So it's interesting you mentioned Maura Sullivan because as we're chatting here on the New Hampshire Journal podcast, the Ms. Sullivan and Ms. Shaheen have both released their latest fundraising numbers for the last quarter, and yet again, Maura Sullivan has crushed Stephanie Shaheen, I think by $200,000. This is the fourth cycle in a row. I'm doing this from memory, but I'm pretty sure I'm right.
You're right.
And Mike, so two things. One is, how the heck does the daughter of a sitting U.S. senator not win every fundraising fight? I mean, that is just, I'm seriously, I'm genuinely surprised. I'm not surprised that Stephanie Shaheen doesn't have a real grasp of the issue. She's very uncomfortable asking hard questions. She clearly is not a serious-minded person about public policy. That's just not who she is. By the way, Congress has a lot of people like that. They're more, focused on like service and constituent service. And then you have the political geeks, that type. And she's clearly not a geek. But I thought for sure the politics would be easy. She's getting her head handed to her. What the heck is going on, Anthony DiLorenzo?
I mean, I think Maura, as far as fundraising, is doing a very good job. I don't think Stephanie's doing a bad job fundraising. I am surprised that, people vote with their money. And I'm surprised that the money is going to Sullivan. She does have a decent background from the perspective she's had service with the Obama administration. Right. She's had military service. I don't think the fact that she moved here from a Chicago suburb within the last 10 years is going to help her in New Hampshire. I hear the term carpetbagger a lot in New Hampshire.
But she's also, because she ran before in 2018, I think that took the edge off of, you know what I mean? It's, people kind of process that. If you're going to vote against her for that, you're already off board. So I think that's good. Now I want to ask about your fundraising, which is interesting because I ask people, what should I ask Anthony DiLorenzo? And almost always from the political pros, not the person at the street, but it's what's up with the fundraising. We were expecting a lot more aggressive numbers up front. They were thinking you were going to kind of do the David versus Goliath, thing, kind of step in and chase, push pressure out. If you want to make news on the podcast and announce your numbers, we're happy to do that right now. But what's your answer to people who are raising an eyebrow about your lack of dominance on the fundraising side?
They should contribute more to the campaign.
Oh, you must have sold a car or two in your background, sir, with an answer like that.
But you know what? I'm a giver. I've always been giving money to different charities and supporting local whatever. Right. Anybody I've tried to support. I feel very fortunate to be successful and to have done it in New Hampshire. So I'm a giver. And so it's very awkward for me to ask people for money. Right. I think we've done a good job. I'm never satisfied and I never will be. So we have a good team. We work hard. They have me making calls all the time. Right. I'm out on the road all the time. I do anticipate having enough resources to win this. But it's a grind raising money. It really is.
Sure. Oh, no. When I used to run campaigns for a living, I felt so bad for candidates because I'd say, get back in that room, pick up that phone. It's call time. And it's
it's not fun. But you know what the thing is like, I'm not asking for money for me. Like, it's not like I need a job. I'm asking for people to support the campaign that believe in the ideals of the campaign, which is basically bringing common sense business practices to Washington. That's what I represent. I represent somebody that's delivered results in the private sector for 40 years, and I want to bring that talent to DC. So I have to get over the fact that I'm the one asking, because it's really not for me. It's for the campaign and the ideals of the campaign.
I often, when I'm interviewing people and I call them representative or senator or whatever, they'll say, oh, no, call me Bill, call me Susie, whatever. And I'm like, no. I worked on campaign. I saw how hard it is for you to earn that label. I use it after people are done. Like your former Senator, Scott Brown, and they're still Senator Brown and Sununu to me because I know what they had to do. But you must have noticed when you talk about, taking a business person's approach, working across the aisle, bringing common sense, that there's a certain part of the electorate in both parties that is not interested in cool, rational. They want to fight. They want to throw mud. They want you jumping other people's face, make them cry. So Why would those primary voters who want, someone going and throwing their mitts, why should they back Anthony DiLorenzo and not one of your Republican opponents?
If you're not happy with the status quo, I'm an outsider. I'm bringing a different perspective to this race and into politics. And I think most people are fed up. I actually think it's why the Democrat socialism has gotten traction is
Right.
because people are fed up with the status quo. They're fed up with, I mean, do you remember when Joe Biden got on TV and I don't know, year three of his and saying he couldn't fix the border because they wouldn't give him the funds to do
Right.
so? He's sitting there on national TV lying to us. President Trump gets
Right.
in there and in 1 month the border's closed.
Right.
People are tired of that. And I remember as a kid in my family, we had a close-knit working class family. There was always this nuance about these politicians are it's hot air, you know.
Right.
And I think a lot of people feel that there's too many people involved in politics for the wrong reason. And that's I'm going there for one reason because I love our state and I want to fight for our state.
Let's wrap up by talking about how you think things are looking for 2026. There's an argument that's made by some people like me that it doesn't matter who the Republican nominee is, you just can't win because it's New Hampshire. And just look at the track
Mhm.
record going back to 2010. You've only had one federal win. That was the fluke of Frank Ginta re-winning his seat. You go
Right.
back all the way to 2000. It's a spotty record at best. You think about 2006 when the Iraq War was going on, and man, Republicans just got killed.
Mhm.
So for people who are trying to looking for a path to victory, you're out actually talking to real voters. You're actually asking people to write you checks.
Right.
How would you describe the path to victory for a Republican like you in November?
I feel that the New Hampshire voter is an educated voter. They expect candidates to be out on the road. They ask tough questions. It- they're not impressed by a suit and a tie. They want to hear about what you have to say.
Right.
Um, and so I think this election will come down to how pragmatic the New Hampshire voter is. Do you want a change? Do you want somebody
Right.
representing you that stands for common sense and that's somebody that's delivered results in the private sector for a long time? I've created over 1,000 jobs. I mean, there's not many people that can say that, and those that can say that are probably not crazy enough to run for Congress. Um, it's true. It's like you know how hard it is, and
Sure.
it's not a
Yes.
very. I mean, I remember Caroline Leavitt called me up when I announced, and she warned me. She said it might have been right before I announced. She said, "This is very, very hard," and I sort of blew it
Yes.
off a little. I helped Caroline a lot, and she warned me for like 5 minutes, and she was right. This is difficult. Now, I don't regret it. I mean, I feel called to do this because I know I'm
Right.
capable of doing it. But it's really going to be uh, it's going to be an indicator of where the New Hampshire
Right.
voter. Do you want a legacy candidate that because of her last name, or do you
Sure.
want somebody that's accomplished in the private sector, that's very capable, that's doing it for the right reasons? That to me, that's what it comes down to.
Are you having fun out on the campaign trail?
I'm starting to, but at first it's like it throws your whole life upside down.
Yep.
I was busy before I started this, so now I'm really busy. But it's great. It's great driving around the state. It's great
Right.
meeting different people. You learn a lot. You meet different people, and they have different issues, and they have different
Right.
perspectives. So that part is stimulating to me. I like learning. So yes, that part is fun. But then there's a lot of people that are nasty too.
Yeah.
You have to be able to take that in stride.
My favorite are the people who have like they're obsessed with some obscure issue. And it's not that it's not legit, but it's
Hmm.
like I want to do something about the whatever
Yeah.
the button grind the ballot of 1749. You're like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
dude, okay. And that's what you have staff for. You get the staff
Right.
over there, get the notes, you have them Google it, find out what the heck is going on. Well, I'm glad that people who want to know what the heck is going on tune into the New Hampshire Journal podcast, and you helped us, Anthony DiLorenzo, by being our guest. Thanks so much for your time.
All right. Thank you. Good to see you.